Continuing now with our top story, the backlash over taxpayer-funded bonuses at the AIG insurance company and the effect that this scandal is having on the Obama administration. Here's what the president had to say today about the bonus contracts.
Nobody here drafted those contracts. Nobody here was responsible for supervising AIG and allowing themselves to put the economy at risk by some of the outrageous behavior that they were engaged in. We are responsible, though. The buck stops with me.
Wow, I never thought I'd hear that before. With us now, political analyst Dick Morris, whose website, dickmorris.com, is a must-read, must-see. Dick,
Problem is the buck stopped with the AIG executives.
Well, what bucks? There are no bucks left. They're all at AIG. Dick, look, the poll numbers now are really starting to show that the people have had about enough of the razzle-dazzle, the parties at the White House. Now Democrats are starting to bleed support. The new Rasmussen, I know you have seen, 41% said they would vote for their district's Republican. 39% would choose the Democrat. Those numbers obviously were flipped just a few months ago. What's going on here?
Well, those numbers were flipped for 3 years. This is a question they ask every week. And every week after depressing week, the Democrats had a 6, 7, 8, 9-point lead. And by the way, won Congress by 6 points, which is what that generic poll predicted they would.
Sure.
So the fact that it's flipped now for the first time in 3 years is pretty impressive.
What do you think about the razzle-dazzle, the Tonight Show appearance tomorrow night? Then he's doing ESPN. He's doing a primetime speech to the nation, press conference thing next week. I mean, there's a lot of razzle-dazzle going on here.
He can try all that, but he's going to get so overexposed. Let me put this in perspective. Compare Clinton, Bush, and Obama at this date in history, 60 days into the presidency. Clinton had a 53% approval, but he only got 42% of the vote when he was elected. So he's plus 11.
Yeah, pretty good.
Bush had a 58% approval, but in 2000 he only got 49% of the vote. So he was running 9 points above his vote share. Obama gets 56% approval, got 52% of the vote. He's only 4 points above his vote share. And that shows the real vulnerability that he has.
Now, the disapproval numbers going up for him, which is a key factor. You also have some interesting insights as to what the Obama administration is doing now with the money supply in the United States. It's a story that people don't talk about. What's going on with the money supply? Straight up.
Today, the Fed announced they were going to inject another $1 trillion into the money supply.
Wait, what does that mean?
What that means is that they will buy up Treasury bonds and also give banks more money in an effort to expand the money supply. Now, the money supply has tripled in the last 5 months, 271%. This will move it up another 60%. Look at some numbers here. There's $800 billion in circulation. There's another $800 billion that's been created that's sitting inside a nice warm vault at the Federal Reserve Board, paying interest to the banks that own that money. The Fed is keeping it for safekeeping because they pay interest now. The banks can take that money out tomorrow, but they don't want to. Why not? Because they don't want to loan money in this environment. Now the Fed is going to put another $1 trillion into that vault. It's not going to go into the street. They're not going to go out in the middle of Broadway and leaflet $100 bills. They're giving it to the bank, which already has $800 billion it's not using. Now, what are they going to do with it? In a year or 2 years, when this thing starts to end, they're going to pull that money out and lend it all at once.
And what does that mean? Inflation? For
double-digit inflation.
So that's for the American people. And that shows up in the form of higher prices, wages that are stagnant, and what else?
Well, gas prices and everything. But the problem is
the dollar not worth as much.
The only way to stop that inflation once it starts is a new recession caused by the government.
God. This is
so
terrifying.
I hate to be like Joseph, but you got a year or two more of this depression. Then you're going to have another year or two of inflation.
Yeah.
Then you're going to have another year of recession to cause the inflation. And you know what? The second and third acts of that are totally unnecessary. All that would have to happen is for Obama not to have passed that stimulus package and the Fed not to do what it did today.
Dick, I'm so glad you raised that. We're watching this whole AIG thing play out. Bonuses are easy to focus on. The main question is the money that went to AIG, the almost $200 billion, a lot of it overseas. Now, if we can't track that, How are we going to track the money that's going to the municipalities, the states, the porculus, and now the new supplemental? I don't think they can track anything because the numbers are too big, and it's not in the bureaucratic mindset to have that type of accountability.
The bulk of that money is sitting in the Fed vault. A small amount of it has been drawn on for operating and to stay alive. But that $800 billion that's sitting in the vault is the TARP money. Nobody's touching it. Nobody's using it because General Patton said you can't push a string.
But they're saying they're going to keep some in reserves for future bailouts, which would probably mean what? More for AIG?
More, that goes into that stupid vault. And, you know, think of the vault as a parking lot. Right now, I don't want to drive because the weather's too bad. I'm not going to take my family out in this weather. When the weather improves, I'll start driving.
So down the road, it sucks the consumer,
meantime,
the regular taxpayer,
my car
working
is in
class
the parking
people.
garage,
Yeah.
and I'll bring it out when the weather improves. But everybody will, and that's a traffic
We're almost
jam.
out of time, but I just have a sort of a question off point here. Did President Clinton always use teleprompters when he was just doing impromptu things? I remember he did not.
No.
Isn't that right?
There's a funny story. In 1994, he spoke to Congress, joint session, prime time, and the idiot kid put the wrong speech into the teleprompter. From memory, he gave the right speech.
Yeah.
And then when the kid put the right one in half an hour later, he picked it up where it left off.
Well, I call this President tennis match because it's back and forth, back and forth. Hurts the neck after a while. Dick, thank you.